Good afternoon, class. Today we are here to study the direct comparison approach, which is used by realtors across Ontario in order to determine a selling price or list price for a particular property. Now, when you meet a person who's interested in selling their house, whether it be a house, a condo, a cottage, usually they're going to ask you what comparable sales are in the neighborhood. This approach will enable you to specifically tell them why their property is worth a certain amount based on a comparative market analysis, which is based on information you collect from the Toronto MLS system or the MLS system in your particular area. What we're going to do today is learn how to do this, how to actually determine the value of a subject property by looking at various comparables within the same neighborhood. Okay, and there's very different criteria that we look at in order to do this. We're going to do a few examples as a class, and I believe this will help you understand the process better. So we're going to learn how adjustments are actually made, how to select appropriate properties to use as comparables, as well as how to evaluate the actual value of a particular property. So we need to identify first the subject property. The subject property is a 3-bedroom side split located at 29 Brock Street in Pickering. And it's situated in a good location close to shopping, which is always important for a lot of clients. It's 1,324 square feet in size, and it's built on quite a big lot, 60 foot by 115. It does have a single car garage, and it does not have a fireplace, which could be a positive or a negative. If you look at the market overall in this particular area, prices have risen during the year more than the entire increase in the first 6-month period. There has been no appreciation during the last 6-month period of this year. The building costs for this type of property are $70 per square foot. The lots sell for $900 per front foot. A fireplace adds $2,000 to value, especially because we're in Canada. And single car garages cost $12,000. Double car garages cost $22,000. So what is the difference between a double car garage and a single car garage if you then subtract 22,000 minus 12,000? Who can tell me? David?
$10,000.
$10,000, perfect. So if a property has a double car garage, that means it's worth $10,000 more. So this is definitely going to affect our subject property because it does not have a double car garage, but some of the comparables might. So let's move on and go through an activity as a class to select the best 3 comparable sales. What you're going to do is I'm going to give you some time, about 5 minutes in groups of 3 or 4, and you're going to look at the 5 comparables that are in your student package. Once you look at this, you're going to identify which would be the 3 best comparables a realtor should use when identifying the list price for a property and when doing the comparative market analysis. So please take 5 minutes in your groups to get this done, and I'll circulate around to hear some of your ideas. Okay, class, so let's take this up. Who can tell me? Ingrid, I see that you worked hard with your group. Can you tell me some of your ideas about which would be the 3 best comparable sales?
I believe comparable number 1, 38 Elgin Ave. Comparable 3, 218 Maxwell Ave. And comparable 5, 128 Maple Lane are the most comparable. They are the most recent sales, and they're actually the same, similar house type as the subject property that we're looking at.
Perfect. So they're a similar house type, and what does that mean? The subject property was what type of house style?
It was a back split.
Perfect.
A side split.
A side split. And what about the three comparables that you've chosen?
They are a back split, um, a side split, and two of them are back splits and one's a side split.
Perfect. So it shows you that they're very similar house styles. If any of you have been in a side split versus a back split, it's very similar. So that's one criteria that we can use. How else did you determine which comparables to use? Which other criteria did you use?
I looked at properties with similar square footages to the subject property.
Perfect. So a lot of the comparables you chose were around 1,300 square feet, 1,400 square feet, which is the same as our subject property, which is excellent because it shows you that you're comparing like properties when you're doing your CMA. And what else did you look for?
I looked for properties that were close to the subject property.
Perfect. So if you saw that a property was a few blocks away or maybe a few streets away, ideally it would be on the same street, but it's not always possible based on what you can find on the MLS system. And what would be our last criteria for deciding which comparables apply?
I'm not sure.
So you might have noticed that some of the properties had been sold more recently than others. When looking at time, it's important to determine that you're not looking at old comparables from a year ago. Okay, you want to be looking ideally within a few weeks, but if you can't, within a few months would be suitable. In order to determine your comparable properties. So these are the criteria you use to identify comparable 1, 3, and 5. Now, who can tell me why weren't comparables 2 and 4 like to the subject property?
Well, comparable to was sold 9 months ago, and it was a different house style.
Mm-hmm.
And comparable for it was sold about a year ago, and it was also a different style.
Perfect. So, especially when you're comparing different styles of houses, you want to be really careful. Like, you would never compare a bungalow to a two-story house, for example. So, these are some of the things that you should be looking for when you're developing a CMA for your client. Okay, and this is for your seller client for either a condo, a house, a townhouse, a cottage, as I stated. Okay, so right now we're going to move on and show you how to actually do the direct comparison approach, which is a way of appraising the property. Okay, and this approach will be used even by appraisers themselves, by professional appraisers, in order to determine the value of a property. Okay, but as realtors, it's important to note that we can only state that it's an opinion of value. You'd have to be an actual appraiser in order to identify the actual value. Okay, so let's look at the address 29 Brock Street. Okay, we have the lot size information. We know this total square footage. Okay, we know it has a 1-car garage and it does not have a fireplace. And we know that it's a side split. Okay. Meanwhile, we look at the different comparables. What you need to do in your groups is input all of the important information into your sales analysis on the collaborative document that I've set up for you on Google Docs. So please take time to do that in your groups, and we'll come back to this in a few moments. Okay. So now that you've had 15 minutes to work on this in your groups, we're going to look at the adjustments that we actually made for each comparable in comparison to the subject property. Okay, so who can tell me why did we add $4,500 for comparable 1 in the lot size category?
Because the lot size was smaller, so we added $4,500 to the value of the subject property.
Perfect. So you